Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review we are looking at the SH Figuarts Star Wars Darth Maul figure. This is probably my most it is my most anticipated Star Wars figures from Figuarts so far. Wasn't super impressed with Vader, didn't even get Luke. I guess the Stormtrooper wasn't that good, I don't know, I never got it. But this guy was what I was hoping gonna be the best by far, and as far as I'm concerned, he is. He's a really awesome figure. Here's a quick look at the packaging for those of you that are interested. It's very minimal, very small packaging, which is what I like. It's got everything contained nicely, and it looks good, and that's all you need. We don't need huge bulky boxes. So there's that, and some posing options on the back, and the standard picture of the figure on the side. So there's that. The figure itself stands roughly just shy of 6 inches tall, which makes him about 14.5 centimeters. And if you're curious what he looks like up against the Hasbro Black Series Darth Maul, size-wise, they are very similar. Similar enough to the point where I think you would be more than okay using the Figuarts figure alongside your Star Wars Black figures. This is probably the best, or at least one of my favorite Star Wars Black figures so far. They did a really good job with Darth Maul, and this figure is even better. So if you're going to choose between the two, obviously they have different price points, and that's why I don't normally compare things like this. This is the one to go with. The Figuarts one is really fantastic. But this one's also really good too, so it's going to come down to what you want in the figure, but this one, pretty good. Alright, one thing to note though, this one comes with the cloak, and this one does not. So if you're into the cloak, then that's the way to go. So let's look at the accessories for this guy first. Most importantly, we have alternate heads. So we have this head, which is just really, really, really good. It looks just like it's supposed to, and the paint job is pretty much spot on. I'm really pleased with that. Then we also have this head, which is the angry head, and you've got his teeth in there, a little bit of a furrowed brow, cheeks are up a little bit, so that's a really nice job on that also, and they're just connected on ball pegs, so that's easy. Of course, we have our dual lightsaber, so those don't snap together. That's a separate handle or hilt or whatever they're called, I don't know. So you get the two individual ones, which are also really well detailed, by the way. They did a great job with that. And then you get the dual one, which is basically the same thing, just with them already connected, so you don't have to worry about that. Of course, you have to remove the blades though, and the blades are a nice translucent red plastic, so that's a very nice touch. I prefer the translucent plastic over painted opaque plastic. But they peg in and they look really nice. It's a really nice deep red. No problem at all with that. The only minor issue I have is that his gripping hand, at least for the angled one for the left side, it's a little bit loose. You can slide the hilt in the hand a little bit. Not so much thanks to the buttons that it's a real problem, but it's something to note that it's a little bit loose there. So we might as well talk about the hands now. We have the angled gripping hands for either side, so you can kind of bring the lightsaber more in line with the arm, so that's pretty nifty, good for posing. And then we have the straight gripping hands. If you want to just put it straight out, that's your option there. So a little bit of variety. And of course you could technically do that with this, but then you have to bring the wrist up. So this hand is really going to be just used for poses that involve doing that, which I'm happy with. I'm glad they included that. And of course we have our fist hands, because you always need fist hands. So we have those. Nicely detailed, little extra wrinkles for the gloves on there. Nice sculpt work. And then lastly we have our open hands, which are for whatever you want to use them for, whether it's the Force or just a style pose or anything you want. So you have those. And that's it for accessories. So it's not a huge amount, but I think it's all that we really need. The Hasbro one did come with that little scouter thingy or whatever that was. I'm not sure that was entirely necessary, so I don't really mind not having that. And I do wish, or I think it would be cool at least if this guy came with the cloak, but I don't think it's at all necessary, because most likely you're going to want to pose him in his awesome uncloaked look anyhow. So I'm okay with that. As far as the sculpt goes, this figure is really well done. There's just cloth wrinkling everywhere, which makes it look really good, even though it is all plastic. This guy did have some soft goods on him, which some people like, some people don't. I'm personally not the biggest fan, even though they did a good job with this. I think this guy looks much better, and it is all textured, so let's see how much we can see of that texturing. Thanks to this camera, I'm able to do that much better than I can with my naked eye. So there's lots of texturing basically throughout the entire figure. There are some parts which do not have texturing, and that is intentional. So like his undersuit here. So this vest part has it and this undersuit does not, so that's kind of nice. The gloves don't, the boots don't. So it's appropriate where it is and where it isn't. So I'm really pleased about that. And all of these pieces are sculpted. They're not soft, meaning cloth, so I'm okay with that. I find it a little odd that this one, unless it's not actually connected, yeah, it feels like it is. This one's a little bit off center, but it's not, obviously not a big deal at all. There's just a bigger gap right here, so that's just something I noticed. But otherwise, I'm really happy with the way they sculpted these. They look really good, and there's enough separate pieces and enough flexibility to them that they won't get in the way of posing at all. So that's pretty awesome. As far as the paintwork goes, it's mostly just all flat black. The boots, technically, I think, are the same molded plastic as the pants, but since they're smooth compared to the texture, they actually look a little bit different in the color tone, so that's good. His undersuit up here, it actually has like a tinge of brown or red into it, so that's pretty nice looking. It looks good. And then the belt has even a little bit more, so that stands out. And obviously the face paint is on point, so that's really good. As far as articulation goes, the head is on a double ball peg, but there's no gapping. And you can move the head around pretty much however you want to. You shouldn't have any trouble with that at all. The neck is at least on a single ball peg. I haven't pulled it off to check because I didn't really want to risk breaking it, but the neck can move around side to side, front and back, and of course it has a swivel, so you should be able to pose him however you need to without any trouble. For the shoulders, they actually made them almost exactly the same as the Variable Action Heroes Ace, which I didn't expect Figuarts to do, and I don't know, obviously they've been designing this figure for a long time, so I'm not saying they copied it, I'm just saying that was a good design, and Figuarts did it here too. So we have the butterfly joint where the whole assembly moves side to side, or however you want to describe that motion, that lateral motion. And then you can see this little piece sticking out right here. That gives us a vertical butterfly joint. It doesn't have the greatest range just because it can't go anywhere due to the sculpt. You're mostly just using the ball hinge, but that does actually have the vertical butterfly joint. So maybe not executed as nice as it could be because he doesn't have that much extra range, but it's cool that they included that. I really appreciate that. And then of course we have our standard ball hinge, which is connected to that whole assembly, so you can move the arm all the way around however you need to. The only real limitation other than that vertical butterfly joint is that, which they couldn't really do anything about here, the cloth here that kind of caps over the shoulder joint does get in the way a little bit, so it does limit the articulation some. Not enough to where it's a problem, it's just worth noting that it does get in the way, but it's okay because it looks really good and hides that joint nicely, so I'm perfectly okay with that. And that does give us a little bit of a bicep swivel there also, so that's pretty nice. Now for the elbow, it's closer to a Figma joint than our standard SH Figuarts joints. It's basically just a single hinge, but it gives us better than 90 degrees, and it looks pretty good all the way around, so I'm all right with that. And technically, it does have a bicep swivel built in, just like a Figma joint does, so that's pretty nifty. For the wrist, now this I'm a little worried about. I know they've been doing joints like this for a long time, but it's just such a small piece of plastic, and it takes a decent amount of force to pull the hands off. I'm afraid that's going to break, but we do have our standard ball hinge with the peg on the end for the hand. So just be careful with that. There goes Zordon. Just be careful with that joint so that you don't break it, and I think you should be fine. One thing I want to point out while you're posing the arms and shoulders, you shouldn't have too much trouble because this is actually a separate piece on top of the main body. So if you do want to bring the arm around and you're worried that this up here is going to get in the way, it won't because it's a soft piece. So they did a really good job with that, and that just kind of wraps up around here by the neck. For the torso, it's basically just a single ball peg as far as I can tell. I tried pulling on it and it didn't really seem to do much, but you can lean side to side a little bit, forward and back a little bit. It's not the best range of motion we've ever seen, but it is sufficient, I think, for posing him, especially once you turn him to the side and lean him over. I don't know if you'd really want to lean him over too much more than that anyway, so I'm okay with that. And actually, we can see inside a little bit. Well, I can, you guys probably can't. It does appear to just be a single ball peg. And the belt is a soft piece that will move around with the torso if you want it to, and it won't really get in the way too much. So it's not the most range of motion, but I think it's definitely okay. Now for the lower torso, we have this kind of floating crotch piece down here, which is soft plastic, and you can spin the lower torso also. And you have the, we don't have the pull down hinges like we normally do, the hinged ball pegs. They're just fixed ball pegs with the ball peg socket for the hip and then the thigh swivel on that. But because this is all soft plastic, you can still bring the legs up pretty far. Not quite 90 degrees, but probably far enough. I think, again, it could be a little bit better, but it's definitely good enough. So I'm all right with that. And then going out to the side, you can bring the legs out that far, which again should probably be enough. I don't know why they didn't bother with the hinged ball pegs. Maybe they figured they just didn't need to because they already got this much range out of it, which I'm okay with. I think it's not necessary in this case, but it definitely could have been nice, possibly. But it's definitely okay. And we do have our thigh swivel built into that. For the knee, it's basically the same as the elbow. It's just a really big single hinge joint, which actually works well because you get good range of motion. You can bring the leg back about 90 degrees, and it doesn't look too bad from the front. Even though it's smooth, it still fills the joint gap nicely. And then you can bring it all the way forward where it hides the joint completely. Also, we get that swivel built in there, just like a standard Figma joint, and it swivels on both ends. And this is actually a separate piece here to kind of just look like the bottom of the pants. Now, the one place where we are kind of limited is the ankle. They used a double ball peg system, but it doesn't have too much range of motion, so that's going to do a little bit of limitation when we're trying to pose this figure. It's not bad. I mean, I haven't had too much trouble getting him in the poses I want. The feet just don't tend to get as flat as you want them to due to the fact that it's on that double ball peg. And then lastly, we have a nice toe hinge. So all in all, it's a really solid figure. It looks great. It looks just like it's supposed to. I do believe the way they sculpted this is more accurate to the movie than the Hasbro one, which isn't really any surprise. But definitely, if you guys are into Darth Maul or Star Wars and you collect this type of figure, even if you don't, this is one you want to pick up. It's a really, really solid figure. I just got a whole bunch of figures recently. If you follow me on Facebook, you saw me post about that. And this one's my favorite out of all of them. So they did a really good job with this. It gets my seal of approval, so I recommend you get it. For sure, Big Bad Toy Store should be getting it in soon, so check the link in the description below and get yours if it's still available. I'm not sure if it is, but give it a shot if you can. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can see my upcoming figure reviews, custom figures, and other good stuff. And in the meantime, keep